Welcome back to This Day in Scottish History. I'm your host, Colin MacDonald, and today we celebrate one of Scotland's most iconic figures, a man whose words continue to echo across the centuries. On this day, January 25th, 1759, Robert Burns was born in a humble clay cottage in Alloway, Ayrshire. Known affectionately as the Bard of Ayrshire, Burns would go on to become Scotland's national poet, a cultural icon, and a voice for the common people. Burns was born the eldest of seven children to William Burns, a tenant farmer, and Agnes Brune. Life in 18th century rural Scotland was far from easy, and the Burns family faced their fair share of hardships. The cottage where Robert was born, now a famous landmark, was built by his father with his own hands. Despite their modest means, William was determined that his children receive a good education. This early exposure to literature and a fierce work ethic laid the foundation for Robert's future success. The young Burns grew up working long hours on the family farm, but even as he toiled in the fields, his mind was alive with poetry. Inspired by the Scottish oral tradition, he learned the songs, stories, and folklore of his homeland, which would later shape his work. Burns had a natural gift for language and a keen ear for the rhythms of Scottish dialect. Burns published his first collection of poetry, poems, chiefly in the Scottish dialect, in 1786. Known today as the Kilmarnock edition, this small book became an instant sensation. Works like To a Mouse and the Cotter's Saturday Night revealed his remarkable ability to capture the beauty and struggles of everyday life, combining heartfelt emotion with biting social commentary. His use of Scots language rather than standard English was a radical choice that endeared him to his countrymen. What made Burns truly unique was his ability to weave humour, romance, and sharp political insight into his poetry. He championed themes of equality, love, freedom, and humanity, values that resonated far beyond the borders of Scotland. As a farmer turned poet, Burns was a voice for the common folk, and his legacy is deeply tied to his ability to articulate their joys and struggles. Burns's life, though brilliant, was tragically short. He died in 1796 at the age of just 37, likely due to heart disease exacerbated by hard labour and poverty. Yet in his short life, he wrote hundreds of poems and songs that would cement his place in literary history. His works include the beloved Auld Lang Syne, Sung Around the World, To Bid Farewell to the Old Year and Welcome the New, and I Fond Kiss, a heart-wrenching ode to love and loss. Burns's songs also played a critical role in preserving Scotland's rich musical heritage. Many of his lyrics were set to traditional Scottish melodies, ensuring that the music of the people would live on. Every year, on January 25th, Scots and admirers of Burns around the world gather to celebrate his life and work with a Burns supper. The evening typically begins with the Selkirk Grace, a short prayer attributed to Burns, followed by the ceremonial presentation of haggis, the centrepiece of the meal. As the haggis is brought in, it's accompanied by bagpipes and the recitation of Burns's famous poem, Address to a Haggis. The event continues with whisky, traditional Scottish dishes, music, and readings of Burns's poetry. The evening concludes with everyone joining hands to sing Auld Lang Syne, a timeless reminder of fellowship and friendship. More than 2 centuries after his death, Burns's influence remains profound. His advocacy for equality and the dignity of ordinary people continues to inspire, While his love of nature and humanity resonates in a world increasingly disconnected from those ideals, he has been celebrated by figures as diverse as Abraham Lincoln and Bob Dylan, and his work has been translated into languages across the globe. In Scotland, Burns is not merely a poet but a symbol of national pride. His birthplace in Alloway, now the Robert Burns Birthplace Museum, attracts visitors from around the world eager to walk in the footsteps of the Bard. As we celebrate the birth of Robert Burns today, we're reminded of the power of words to uplift, connect, and endure. His poetry reminds us of our shared humanity, our love of freedom, and the simple beauty of life itself. Whether you're a Scot or simply a fan of great poetry, raise a glass and toast the Bard of Ayrshire today. Thank you for joining me on this day in Scottish history. I'm Colin MacDonald. Haste, you're back.